T, what's going on, Mikey? Patricia, how's it going? Hey, Snoop. Stop. Yes. So, one to the bridge. Yes. 16. Yes. Yes. She was the sister. Yes. Very correct. Hey, peace. How's everybody? I'm gonna get the reading going here in a minute. I had to make my little shake and. Watching this little video, sad, of this shooting with this guy Tavares or whatever on a Twin City bus. This generation, boy, they only knew. You know, it's sad they don't. Lion's mane was. Mushrooms, half a cup of cassava, a tablespoon of cinnamon, one banana, coconut water, and chia seeds, protein, and it's good. It's just, and a cup, the serving cup, like when you do a protein shake or something, of oats. So it's good. And that'll hold me through the night. Yeah, I'm tired. You know it. One thing you can't do is if you fast, right? Let me tell you something, all right? Depending on who you're around, if somebody's, people, a lot of people are jabbed up, a lot of people flu shots, this, that, and other, they're just keeping up the, and sometimes you can feel it. And also, if you don't get a lot of sun, when you go out, I got a vacuum, but when you go out, if you say it's been there, like, I haven't used it yet, but it's really not bad, but I know the hairs from that little guy are everywhere. Anyway. When I go out, right, it's like in the sun. If you don't go and get a lot of sun, when you do decide to get a lot of sun, because of the vitamin D and the C release and all that stuff, you can feel like you're coming down with something. And usually that's not what it is. That's why I always say, get your vitamin B's multi-complex. And when you get into cold water, it'll help with your immune system. For some reason, especially when you get your head cold, it shocks your system, it kicks it on. As long as you're in the cold, at least 11 to 15 minutes out of the week. I mean, out of 5 to 7 days, at least 15 minutes. I get in the shower, I'm in the cold shower for about 10 minutes. And I can put my head up under there, especially when it hits my back, it drives me crazy. But I do it anyway. That's when I grit up, I don't make no sound. It's like, oh yeah. And then I'm in there. It's like that quick. It's like, because the conscience was like sitting there going, it's going to be freezing. It's going to be about 38, 40 degrees. 50 is good enough. You can get it 50 degrees. You check it with your thermometer. Cool. It's still cool. It's still 58 degrees Coronado, right? 50 degrees is cold. I like it about 38, 40 degrees. That means it's really shocking my system. It's got my heart beating a little bit, and it's making my body do a reset. So I like that 10 minutes in the cold shower. If you got to do a lukewarm where it's kind of cool, it's not what you're used to, because hot showers don't really do nothing for you. They don't. Opens your pores, it gets all the fluoride and all the chemical chlorine, everything in your pores, your body. With cold water, it closes your pores. Now, you're still going to sweat when you get out. And that's the benefit. Your body's going to regulate and get impurities out. So the cold water is very important. Load up on your B vitamins. Don't mean sit there and take a bunch of B vitamins in one sitting. You're going to toxify yourself and probably do some serious damage. And I didn't do it. So I was going to, for the hour, or however long it's been, I was going to take a cold shower right quick. I was like, you know what? Let me come and get the read on. Because I'm not going to come here giving y'all I was in the bathroom going, whoo, 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 dancing. Nah, you go and get your own, whoo, whoo, get your own frequency of vibrations going, however, okay? Yo, Mike, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Get in there and get it done, y'all. Trust me. Just trust. On this one, I don't ever ask somebody to trust me, but trust me on it, all right? Just give it a shot. Give it a run. Allow yourself to feel it, and then take it from there, right? And then move in the next direction, wherever it is you got to move. You know what I'm saying? So when I get off of this after reading, because I'm tired too, I'm going to get that cold shower, I'm going to close that curtain, the blind, and I'm going to stretch out butt naked in it. TMI, no shut up. But butt naked is what it is. We came here that way, we're going to go out that way. Anywho, and I'm going to stretch out. Gods of Egypt or something. I'm gonna put something on. Maybe I might just listen to Manny P. Hall or whatever. Something to elevate and then unplug for the night. Go to bed kind of early. I know my vampire brother and my Ganji Water brother is gonna probably want to do a podcast, DJ and all of them. You know what I'm saying? And might be a little too late for this. This old wolf right here, you know what I'm saying? I ain't over, don't get it twisted. So anyway, let's go ahead and get a little Iron Republican. I know y'all really enjoying that. Let's turn this down. We're gonna turn it on. Iron Republic, edited by C.J. Austin. Well, that the Pope is the Antichrist. No Pope resigns. He dies. The night he was when lightning struck the Vatican. Satan was coming. Listen, Pope, now they have keep an eye on. Yeah, I don't know about that Satan stuff, but yeah, I believe it's very possible there's a name, and we've been given a whole lot of runaround. But I would allude to, regardless of names, like you just described, pay attention to everything that's going on. But as far as the names, don't litigate the ideology of whatever name they've given, because it may give strength, it may take from. Allow it to be and exist as it is. Just know your position and what you need to do as far as preparatory. Now, some people say, man, they so animals and there's nothing we could do. And well, what's the purpose of finding out that you're autochthonous to the land and then you don't do anything preparatory-wise to prepare yourself for whatever may arise? Well, we know that there's out of 140 whatever terrorists that they caught, you better believe thousands came over. And the fake government didn't go ahead and just take ammonium nitrate and bombs about 2 years ago for no purpose at all. They plan ahead. They established themselves. And they did it with fiat, based upon your gold or whatever's on your name and your birthright. And that's why the Vatican stepped down. That's why the so-called the king, when the queen died and the king established himself and spoke about that which is richer, is boarded up, and they're building a brick wall around the Capitol, which they should be doing none of it, because none of it belongs to them. This is the institutionalization. You know what I'm saying? This is the institutionalization to which we should never give energy to. All right? That's what I'm going to say that. Let's go ahead and get into this reading. Okay? Okay. Sound like what's the name of it? South Park. Okay. Red Dawn. They're here. All right. Let's break it in. Awake or dreaming, I felt that I had met my destiny, and that to be awakened from such a dream would be the cruelest prank that fortune could play upon me. And when I went back in imagination to my home in America and tried to recall each event from the beginning of my strange experiences, linking them together and so connected them down to the present, it could not be an illusion. And yet, as a practical man, I could not but admit to myself that it was in some respects remarkably dreamlike. Here I was, a bachelor of 26, who had met some of the most beautiful women in America, without having my heart even touched, and yet I was already deeply involved with the first and only young woman I had met in this wonderland, and after an acquaintance of only a few hours, mind you. Right? How long I lay awake, I know not, but as exhausted nature began to yield, I found myself wondering if there was really such a place as the Iron Republic, or Barrier Passage, or a ship named the Wanderer. And then I started violently 2 or 3 times as I felt myself precipitate from the flying train on which I had ridden that day, or imagined that I was falling from a runaway aeroplane miles and miles above the earth. When I awoke the next morning, it was with the sound of music in my ears and the first rays of the rising sun shining in at my window. As I listened to all pervading harmony that seemed to swell out over the landscape in every direction, I, oh, I append from the grand and stately measure that it was a kind of hymn or anthem, evidently played on some great mechanical instrument at a high elevation. As we know, they utilize many singers of ours and musicians to pervert the frequency, A440, 808, and it controls our people. I arose and went to my window, but I could by no means make out from what direction the sweet sounds came, and what would be my rationale as far as how would we fix that? Forget music industry, forget radio, forget entertainment. Let those in your family sing amongst you. Make the suggestion to see what happens. Though I had retired, well, you got to antiquate also when you make the suggestion as to the why. So I hope I've given enough information. Though I had retired quite late the night before, as it was earlier than I was in the habit of rising, I felt very much refreshed. I could perceive from the invigorating and bracing air that the capital must be located on a high plateau, for the atmosphere had all the crispness of mountain air. Now, the view from my window was different from what I had ever seen in any city before. Instead of a dreary waste of housetops ornamented with clothes, horses, and chimney flues, as far as the eye could reach, I saw pretty cottages of brick and stone surrounded by spacious gardens and grounds. As I looked over these highly cultivated tracts, I thought of what I had read of ancient Babylon, that enough provisions could be raised within its walls with what was stored to withstand a siege of 20 years. Now, the music, which had awakened me, continued for some 5 minutes and then ceased and died away in the distance like the musical cadence of a deep toned bell. Bells. Dressing, I went down into the sitting room and finding no one there, walked out on the veranda. My friend's house stood in the midst of quite extensive grounds, which, with the exception of the flower garden above the house, was set in vines and fruit trees, like hanging gardens. I love those. As I looked down through a labyrinth of green, I caught the glimpse of a scarlet figure, and though I could but see the flashes of color through the intervening foliage, something in the tree and graceful movement told me that it was the daughter of the house. And with my heart beating as it never did, Sue, at the sight of any woman before, I descended from the veranda and, picking up my way through the dew-laden grass, I approached her. She did not see me as her face was turned the other way, and I had the opportunity of admiring her beautiful form in another garb and with different surroundings. She wore a knitted scarlet jersey that fitted perfectly and was belted about the waist with a hempen girdle. And we made clothes out of hemp, remember? And below the girdle, it broadened into a skirt that fell gracefully to the tops of the waterproof boots of oiled canvas that buttoned quite up to the knees. The tight-fitting sleeves covered her wrists, and the turned-up collar completely hid her white neck and throat. Her hair fell in tresses to her waist, and but for the jaunty straw hat that surmounted the whole, she would have been almost a facsimile of an American Indian maiden as they are pictured in the old school books, the rewrite of history, of course. She was picking grapes, and as I came up, she turned and greeted me with a smile. I had wondered when I came out if she would appear as enchanting under the severe ordeal of daylight and sunshine as she had the night before. And the first glance showed her to be even more so. Her cheeks were as rosy as a sun-kissed peach, and her deep brown eyes seemed to have caught an opaline tint from the morning sky. Although she looked so charmingly fresh and beautiful that had I dared, I would probably have made a fool of myself. As I feasted my eyes on the fresh loveliness of her face, this guy's a freak, she blushed lightly and looked down into the basket she carried on her arms. I can't blame him. You are an early riser, I said, taking the basket from her and pulling down the vine from which she had been picking grapes. It is our custom to rise in the sun, she replied. I am glad to find that you did not wake up in America this morning. If I had, I said, looking into her face so ardently that her eyes fell before mine, I should have been the most miserable man in that country. Did you wake in time to hear the matin? She asked lightly, as if to give another turn to the conversation. Do you mean that grand music that seemed to pervade everything? Yes, that is the matin, and is played every morning at sunrise. Did you like the music? Indeed, I thought it was magnificent. Oh, thank you, she said with a gratified smile. It was by a very dear friend of mine, and I am so glad you liked it. Indeed, I exclaimed. And who is this accomplished friend? Professor Hallam of the National Conservatory. Those few words robbed the sun of half its brightness and the world of half its charm to me. Even the grape that I had put into my mouth seemed to lose its sweetness. After all, this brilliant creature had a very dear friend, and that interest could she possibly take in me further than to indulge a generous, relax, sympathy for a wandering lost man without a people and without a country? Does he play this hymn every morning? I asked. Oh, no, indeed. As a rule, he improvises a new piece every morning and never plays the same one 2 days in succession, unless there are special requests for it to be repeated. He must be a wonderful man, I remarked. He must be feeling some kind of jealous. Anyway, to improvise such wonderful music. But it is more wonderful still that he should be able to repeat such improvisations afterwards. And he doesn't do that, she answered. Everything that is played on the grand harmonium is by mechanical device, registered, that is, a copy of the music is made and can be preserved. And is this man, as you call it, a public function? I inquired. Entirely so, was the reply. It was instituted by Professor Hallam when he was called to the head of the conservatory, and it was his idea, and these matins and nocturnes are his fad, if I may employ an American term I heard you use last night, but a most beautiful one nevertheless. Fad, you know. Where does this music come from? I asked, looking around for its probable source. And how far can it be heard? It is played from the dome of the conservatory and can be heard for many miles around. When the weather is favorable, she answered. In reply to my further question, if it was a function that was performed in all parts of the Republic, I was informed that it was a purely local affair, originating with Professor Hallam, but that quite a number of cities. No, that didn't make sense. But that quite, I guess, befitting quite a number of cities and communities had adopted it, and it was obtaining great favor with the people. From his position and ability, this Professor Hallam must be, that is, quite an old man. I ventured bludgeoningly. Here he goes with that. Come from the east or the west. I would judge him to be about your age, she answered with an arch smile. I do not know how you reckon your age in America, but it is not considered distressingly old in this country. My heart turned to lead as she went on to speak of his great genius, his wonderful compositions and his national fame. It sank like the mercury in a Dakota blizzard. She told me with an evident glory of pride that she had taken a special interest in her and that she was indebted to him for, I think that was supposed to be in him, but anyway, for what little knowledge of music he possessed, or she possessed, excuse me. I heard all this with pretty much the same feelings that the condemned man hears the judge in long-drawn judicial platitudes. This, this, depict the enormity of his crime. It was plainly to be seen that she greatly admired this musical prodigy, if nothing more. Noticing my downcast look, she rally me by asking what I thought of her working dress. I felt like telling her that Mother Eve's dress of fig leaves would be gorgeous if only she wore it, but simply remarked that I thought it very pretty and convenient. She told me that this style of dress was worn by the women and girls generally for walking and outdoor work. Wow. And a call from Miss Morris interrupted us. In saying that her mother wanted the grapes for breakfast, my companion led the way to the house. Arriving there, she took the basket and telling me that I would probably find her father in the library. She passed into the kitchen through the back door. On entering, I was warmly greeted by my host, and in a few minutes, breakfast was announced. The meal was simple but most excellent, consisting chiefly of cereals with butter, milk, and fruit. Coffee was also served. After a short invocation by the head of the house, we took our place at the table in the same order as the evening before and without the slightest pretense at formality or ceremony. The breakfast was served. After a few minutes' conversation, mostly referring to my impressions of my surroundings, Professor Morris remarked that it was their custom, in lieu of conversation, to take the current news during the meal hour, especially at breakfast. He was a very busy man, he said, and tried to dispose of the day so as to get most out of it. Then, at the request of her father, Miss Helen rose and going back into the front room, manipulated the telephone in some way and returned to the table. Almost immediately, a voice began to speak, apparently from overhead. And looking up, I noticed another transmitter in the center of the ceiling, similar to the one in the front room. Clear and distinct came the words, as if a good reader was reading from the columns of a newspaper. Ironia, 7 o'clock morning resume. And then followed general news reports from every part of the Republic, agricultural and government reports, local news items, and in general, the matters which go to make up the news pages of our daily papers. There was a condensed account of the voyage of the Wanderer, from an interview with Captain Brent, and an item saying that I was the guest of Professor Morris of the Naval College. Now, we lingered at the table some minutes after the meal was concluded to get the sum of this resume, and it still continued after we left the room. We had gotten all of the current news, though, and my host could not spare the time to take the literary review which followed. For an hour or two more, I was informed this resume would continue, giving out reviews, essays, poetry, fiction, humor, and purely literary matter of every description which the ladies enjoyed at their morning work. That existed here. That existed here. And we sit by. And these platforms are not for us to communicate. Trust me. Otherwise, and I wish I had you all around me, with cell phones and everything put away. But maybe that day will come and maybe it won't. I need more than 2, 3, or 4 people. Yet, I'm going to have to make some choices here soon. So we'll pick the other bit up tomorrow. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this. That is an excellent read, wouldn't you say? Conservatory with a telescope. Not necessarily. Conservatory doesn't necessarily mean the ones that we have, like the one on the mountain here called the Lucifer, by the Vatican in their stew part, is more like a laboratory of they're watching for something. There's no space. We all know this. So what are they actually doing? They're watching. Like I Ching. So let's go ahead right into George Jones, An Original History of Ancient America. Don't worry, when I read all the books, everything is in tune, one with the other. Just always remember that. So here we have George Jones, An Original History of Ancient America. Let me make sure I didn't, okay. Right on. Okay. Okay. Last was Upon the Altar. And then we got to the part on the top of one. For example, stucco figures at Palenque are 3 hieroglyphics sunk in the stucco. The following will not serve to support his conclusions. And we got all the way to there because I wanted to go ahead and I know it'd be easy to carry on from here to get into the pyramidal remains, or so-called. Now, and the most radical difference of all is the pyramids of Egypt are complete in themselves. The structures, this one's got his sock. The structures in this country, America in brackets, were erected to serve as the foundations of buildings. And there is no pyramid in Egypt with a palace or temple upon it. Now, in brackets it says, would he have it on an apex? Now, that's a good question. And there is no pyramidal structure in this country without. So we have palaces stuff on top of the pyramids here. Now, from the foregoing extract, can any reader acquainted with the arts fail to arrive at the conclusion that the builders of Palenque and Uxmal derived from the Egyptians all that was good of their great edifices and improved upon the other parts? Now, for what reader will deny that a temple erected upon the lower portions of a pyramid is an improvement upon the original by the association of utility? It's an excellent question as well. And being an improvement, it must have been by those acquainted with the original. And as remarked in the following pages, what nation had the facility of being so acquainted as the Tyrian? Now, and as if in direct copy of the Egyptians, we have shown that the size of the pyramidal base at Copan is identical with that of the Great Pyramid of the Nile, while that at Cholula, I know how to say it, why am I not saying it right? Cholula in Mexican America is exactly twice the base measurement. It is scarcely possible that these dimensions should have been accidental in construction. Now, there is then, he says, no resemblance in these remains to those of the Egyptians, and failing here, we look elsewhere in vain. Now, that's the idiot. We know Stephen's another, so. His conclusions upon false premises would indeed prove no resemblance, but truth and her all-powerful propositions are against him. His own descriptions and those of his attendant artists crush him at every step. They both prove resemblance in every ruin at Copan, pyramidal structures, idol obelisks, and sepulchral chambers. At Palenque, profile figures and square-based pyro foundations. At Uxmal, the same with the colonnade of circular columns. And at the second city, Palenque, a stone statue is even found, and from the engraving, Egypt, or her Tyrian neighbor, would instantly claim it. Of this statue, he writes in volume 2, page 349. Now, that's Stephen's book. Now, we were at once struck with this expression of serene repose and its strong resemblance to Egyptian statues. Exclamation mark, mind you. In height, it is 10 feet 6 inches, of which 2 feet 6 inches were underground. Now, the headdress is lofty and spreading. There are holes in brackets near the place of ears, which perhaps were adorned with earrings of gold and pearls. Bound round the neck is a necklace, and pressed against the breast by the right hand is an instrument apparently with teeth. In the woodcut, this instrument with teeth is no more or less than part of a muralled crown, and it may have been, therefore, the statue of the guardian of the city. The Tyrian coins have the muralled crown in the head of the obverse profile, which represents Astarte, and the tutelary goddess of the Tyrians and Sidonians. Now, the left hand rests on a hieroglyphic from which to send some symbolical ornaments, and the figure stands on what we have always considered a hieroglyphic plinth, analogous again to the custom in Egypt. You know what they're talking about, right? Okay. Of recording the name and office of the hero. Wouldn't that be on cartouche, right? Cartouches? Or other persons represented. Now, I would go on. I think we're going to stop there because that is pretty tiptoey. And it's going to be instructive in the next parts. So let me get this pen. And I'm going to mark this one because it's, even though it's right here, I still want to go ahead and mark that. I don't like marking books, but I have a way. There we go. That's good. And we'll definitely get into that part. So what's the relationship? Well, you hear the description of the world of the Republic. We know now what the world looked like here. And they had to create an ideology that would source out stuff to make the rest of the world as old, when this is where this is the fountain to which the crevice and the water leap from, if you get where I'm coming from. Okay. Let's get a little bit of Behold a Pair of Horses. Now, the reference of William Cooper, and the reason why I'm reading this is to let you know the synonymous relationship between the perverse and why we are where we're at right now. And the fact that what you see here was stopped, and here they are foregoing, and they've embarked on this because, for whatever reason. Okay? So here we have Behold a Pale Horse, William Cooper. Excuse me. Namaste. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. Oh, yeah. So not only can you be imprisoned for having exercised freedom of speech, you can be put to death under the provisions of the Geneva Convention in 1949 for having exercised or attempting to exercise freedom of speech. Are y'all aware that the Office of Strategic Services attempted to free Mr. Goring, but because he was so deep, and they could have, they always have to let some go. So what they did was they set it up so he can commit suicide instead of being hung. And they had to let some be hung. But are you aware that there were thousands who committed atrocities, or there were thousands, I mean thousands, brought here who didn't murder any Jews or nothing. They were keeping the Zionists from controlling the narrative there. But the Zionist always has to have a patsy, someone to fall, and a war created out of nothing. And that is what you see. It's such a perversion. So, as we know, why would they want to create war? They weren't attempting to fight us. They were attempting to have peace. And the issue on their land, to deal with certain individual groups who were part of the problem of the social, the economy of the lie of the social construct, they were exacting a right. And what is the fake American government and the fake Britain and all of them do? They go and get involved, or they put the men, by creating a lie and a narrative, to have the war, and Hitler did his best to fight back against it, to stop it, because he was getting rid of the liars over there. Now, anyway, and so here they are in every land, every continent, doing the perversions that he was doing his best to stop. And now you see it. The next item that I introduced into evidence was a field manual, FM 4110, Civil Affairs Operation. You will remember at the outset that I mentioned civil affairs groups. And let me quote to you from that manual what one of the functions of the civil affairs activities includes. Now, item 4 now, assumption of full or partial executive, legislative, and judicial authority over a country or area. So let's see what a country or area is defined as in the same manual it includes. semicolon, small towns in rural areas, municipalities of various population sizes, districts, counties, and provinces or states, regions, or national governments. Nowhere in the manual does it exclude this program from being put into effect right here in the United States. Well, he should have said America, but he was still ignorant to certain things. As a matter of fact, in Kearney, New Jersey, the Civil Affairs Group went into that area and practiced taking over that government government unit, and yet the Army, in its letter of June 16, states that these programs are not for us. Yet they are practiced here in the United States under conditions that can only occur here at home. Now, the study outline of Field Manual FM 4110 on page J24 under Penal Institutions 1B, you see there is a program on concentration camps and labor camps, number, location, and capacity. It is important to note that a concentration camp and labor camp are always located near each other for obvious reasons. Again, on page D4 of the same manual, you'll find a sample receipt for seized property, a sample receipt written English and containing terminology applicable to only U.S. territory. And wouldn't that be SC? Or in Washington? They're 40 acres, mile, whatever square. Now, on page 82 of the same manual, under the heading Tables of Organization and Equipment, we find that there are 3 other organizations that would be working along with the civil affairs operations. The Chemical Service Organization, the Composite Service Organization, and the Psychological Operations, PSYOPs organizations, along with the various civil affairs organizations. Do you think them dropping a bomb in Philly on move with a helicopter, do you think that was by happenstance? Everybody knows they didn't have to do that. Everybody. Do you think those were regular police officers in costume? What did we read earlier? Quiet weapons for quiet wars, right? So we infiltrate. Nobody can stop it. We go on there, we hand over sheet. This is what we're doing. And we go out and mitigate and do things, and everybody just goes, and they go, thank you for your service. And they leave. In July of that year, 1976, the following civil affairs groups met with the following airborne groups at a staging area in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. A staging area is where military units meet before they go into action. They met with the 32nd Airborne and part of the 101st Airborne, and of the 321st Civil Affairs Group of San Antonio, Texas headquarters, the 362nd Civil Affairs Brigade from Dallas, Texas, and the 431st Civil Affairs Company from Little Rock, Arkansas's headquarters, the 306th Civil Affairs Group and William Highland, the 486th Civil Affairs Company from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, the 418th Civil Affairs Company from Kansas City, as well as Kansas City, Missouri, as well as the 307th Civil Affairs Group from St. Louis, Missouri. Also, the 490th Civil Affairs Group from Abilene, Texas, the 413th Company from Hammond, Louisiana, the 12th SS Group, the 12th SS Group, the 12th SS Group, 2nd Battalion, headquarters unknown. Now, I know everybody's watching videos and people talking about we Indian. Now they're using all my little history about Tartaria, and they're using all my little stuff about this and that. But they're not circumventing nothing. I laid the groundwork. They picked it up. But it's already been done. What's the next phase? Why would you take so many people and keep them blind to this reality or possibility or plausibility to a reality? Who knows? Now, the Department of the Army still maintains that all this is not for the United States. Yet this training continues here for us. The evidence is overwhelming, and the plan exists for the imprisonment of millions of U.S. citizens. And even though all this information was presented to the federal magistrate, he still felt that no one was injured by such a plot. On the second day of September 1976, the magistrate recommended to the federal judge that the case be dismissed, and the sole basis for his reasoning to dismiss was that we have to be actually physically injured before we can maintain a lawsuit of this type. He did not feel that although all this active planning and preparation and training was going on, that any U.S. citizen had been injured, even though the citizens may fear exercising his or her freedom for fear of being detained and imprisoned in a concentration camp at a later date. And next we'll get into the Constitution and what part it plays. We'll definitely read this tomorrow. Now do you see the suit of the old world here and how it is demoralizing and why we're in the position we're in? Let me take a sip of this. I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll get into Arthur Koestler. I'll stir that cinnamon up. That's so good. Arthur Koestler, the 13th tribe. Yeah, well, that's going to happen regardless. Being obedient for your death is not an answer. Staying where you are is not a good reply. You know, I have something for everything. Let's get into this. One of the earliest records of such a community in Germany. Well, you know where this is from when we last left off. Germany during the critical period when Khazar Jewish immigration into Poland was approaching its peak. Now, one of the earliest records, and where was Hitler from? Okay, need I say more? One of the earliest records of such a community in Germany mentions a certain Kalanimis, something like that, Kalanimis, who in 906 immigrated with his kinfolk from Lucca in Italy to Mayence. About the same time, we hear of Jews in spires and Worms, and somewhat later in other places, Treves, Metz, Strasbourg, Cologne, all of them situated in a narrow strip in Alsace. And along the Rhine Valley, the Jewish traveler Benjamin of Tudela visited the region in the middle of the 12th century and wrote, "In these cities there are many Israelites, Ashkenazis, wise men and rich, but how many are many? In fact, very few, as will be seen. Earlier on, there lived in Mayence a certain Rabbi Gershon ben Yehuda, circa 960 to 1030, whose great learning earned him the title Light of the Diaspora and the position of spiritual head of the French and Rhenish German community. At some date around 1020, Gershon convened a rabbinical council in Worms, literally W-R-M-S, Germany, which issued various edicts, including one that put a legal stop to polygamy, which had anyway been abeyance for a long time. Stop polygamy? To these edicts, a codicil was added, which provided that in case of urgency, any regulation could be revoked by an assembly of 100 delegates from the countries Burgundy, Normandy, France, and the towns of Mayence, Spires, and Worms. You know that in France, the last person beheaded was Ashkenazi, or was it recorded? I believe it was an Ashkenazi. a serial killer or something like that, a murderer. The other guy was Moroccan, and that was recorded when he was let out by somebody in a building. You can Google and see the video. Anyway, in other rabbinical documents too, dating from, now when I'm reading this, don't take it as if it's supposed to exist, because all of this is a fraud by them. Dating from the same period, only these 3 towns are named, and we can only conclude that the other Ashkenazi communities in the Rhineland were at the beginning, my Dutch side, of the 11th century, still too insignificant to be mentioned. By the end of the same century, the Ashkenazi communities of Germany narrowly escaped complete extermination in the outbursts of mob hysteria accompanying the First Crusade, AD 1096. F. Barker has conveyed the Crusaders' mentality with a dramatic force rarely encountered in the columns of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Y'all know I got that 1939 joint. Anyway, he might butcher all till he waded ankle deep in blood, and then at nightfall kneel sobbing for very joy at the altar of the sepulchre. For the sepulchre, the altar of the sepulchre, y'all know who that is, right? Okay, I'm just saying, I hope y'all following along. For was he not read from the winepress of the Lord? The Ashkenazis of the Rhineland were caught in that winepress, which nearly squeezed them to death. Moreover, they themselves became affected by a different type of mass hysteria, a morbid yearning for martyrdom. According to the Hebrew chronicler Solomon Bar Simon, he's not Hebrew, Ashkenazi, considered as generally reliable, the Ashkenazis of Mayence, faced with the alternative between baptism or death at the hands of the mob, gave the example to other communities by deciding on collective suicide. Now, we're talking about the actual, not Ashkenazis, we're talking about the true, some of our ancestors around the world who, like I said, the coup d'etat, who founded Europe. And we know it wasn't really suicide. We know it was a coup d'etat. Imitating on a grand scale Abraham's readiness, imitating at a grand scale Abraham's readiness to sacrifice Isaac, fathers slaughtered their children and husbands their wives. These acts of unspeakable horror and heroism were performed in the ritualistic form of slaughter with sacrificial knives sharpened in accordance with Hebraic law. At times, the leading sages of the community supervising the mass immolation were the last to part with life at their own hands. In the mass hysteria, sanctified by the glow of religious martyrdom and compensated by the confident expectation of heavenly rewards. We know that's not true. They just had enough. We also read in Nos Combatum, the Navigator Across the Ice Walls, in the second book, how a certain individual on a certain earth, in a certain realm, even they subjugated themselves to the same immolation of suicide. But they say some were taken and brought here. Who were they? You see how it all kind of goes together now? Iron Republic, William Cooper, Arthur Kessler, and so on. For those who have a hard time seeing what I'm doing. Anywho, of heavenly rewards, nothing seemed to matter but to end life before one fell into the hands of the implacable foes and had to face the inescapable alternative of death at the enemy's hand or conversion to Christianity. We're going to leave that off right there, bro. Let me highlight that one. Whoo, I got a hold on that part right now. Well, I can read on more and more. It just gets better and better, y'all. It really does. I had to highlight that part. Let me mark it. Yeah. We'll be back in this one tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to read a lot of this one right here, though. Because I want y'all to get a grasp of everything and as to why. may come up. And maybe you will find or know as to why. Turn this Gods of Eden. I want to read those two to you, man. Oh, with the Malar, but not yet. And then the other two we'll read tomorrow because it's late and I've been on here for a minute. So we'll get to the rest of the exposing expeditions, about like about 2 or 3 pages. DNA of the gods. We'll definitely pick that up tomorrow. Okay. We have 53 minutes. Want to keep it at 55. I appreciate everybody coming in who came in. Like I said, everybody's watching this. We Indian still stuff, and we don't do that. You know what I'm saying? The Pope is, yeah, he's something. He's not the Antichrist. He's just a piece of stick, like the rest of them. Yes, bells were used for many things, not just healing, for calm, for serenity, for this beauty to enjoy, without, regardless of what the purpose was order, and they worked. Yeah, right. Why didn't other countries see the Nazis, well, to Ashkenazis, like Hitler, and didn't back him? Well, Hitler played this part too. He played his part, and there were perversions. Like there's a book. I'm gonna see if I can find it. That shows you how these Ashkenazi, because these fake Jews were in a lot of them part of the whole thing, establishing, creating the war, and then running around murdering their own people, murdering civilians, murdering countrymen of other armies and stuff. The War of 11, and to further push the war and to escalate it. And I believe so-called Hitler played a part, and he didn't die at the hands of anything. I believe he was taken away. He may have been taken over here. This game is perverse. If you want to say Satanist or whatever, I believe that if anybody gets a little bit of androchrome and they get a taste of it, they get to see stuff that you can't be tapped into because we have been chemically lobotomized. They want that. It's like the best drug in the world. It's the opposite of, like the DMT-05, whatever it's called. And that's why you have these performers. They're given that, and they go freaky. They have sex with you. They do all kind of weird stuff just to have that. I believe that he played his part. He brought the country to his knees and it was subjugated to a system of lies and perversions. And that's a book. I gotta find it. I gotta look it up. But I appreciate y'all taking the time to come over here. If you're a new subscriber, I appreciate you subscribing. You still have the Cashapp. You can donate. What was that? Yes. It was Tartaria too. Everywhere was Tartaria. Well, the thing is, no, it's actually not repeat. It's repeating the made-up story that's been given. So what is it doing? It hasn't happened. It's been told, and everybody believes it's happened. So fundamentally, we think it existed already. Actually, we're seeing it unfold now. There's nothing new under the sun. So what's happening? Every time there's a subversion or diversion, there's a better way of them doing it because they establish themselves in a position by fake riches and downtrodden on our people. The thing is, they always knew that we would wake up, but would they be prepared for it? I can only say this. It doesn't matter what they do, how many people they put an arm up and training. Right now, they're training those people while y'all sitting around, I'm play good, happy, I'm a happy father, and this, that, and other, and all those things that we do. That's not preparing you for nothing. Me talking, I'm probably the only one who's saying, look, this is what you probably need to do. While everybody else is, look at this book, and I got this book, and show it, and that's all fine and dandy. That's better for the sermon of the children. But until that point, people need to know these things, and that's why people need to stop following certain individuals, because those certain individuals are there to make sure that they stay obstructed, deceived, removed. Okay? So get them over here. I got a story to say. I got a story to tell. And these liars and these people that think it would be better that if they were in a desert with no water and that their lips cracked and bled Trust me. Appreciate y'all. Beautiful women, sisters, my brothers. Always 2 under 1. And I'll see y'all tomorrow.